Guess what I have in my hand? My Bet Parks Casino and Sportsbook app. You know what else I have in my hand? I have Colorado as a 22-point home underdog hosting USC because I've not given up on Coach Prime. Do what I do. Have some skin in the game. Have some fun this weekend. A lot of great college football, a lot of great pro football. Just open the Bet Parks Sportsbook app. You'll be in the zone. Live in-game betting as it happens, more than the score, touchdowns, passing yards, team touchdowns, all that fun stuff. Check out the same game parlays under the pre-pack tab on the Bet Parks app. In Philly, I also like the Birds as a 9-point home favorite hosting Washington. Join me right now. Download the Bet Parks Casino and Sportsbook app. New customers make a winning $10 bet, get $125 in bonus sportsbook bets back. Got to make a winning bet, and bonus bets have to be wagered once. All right. Love this app, the Bet Park Sportsbook app. Live betting parlays, props, and teasers. Got to be 21 and in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Ohio, or Maryland. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Gang, I want to follow up relative to the headlines from Smerconish.com, the Friday edition. I want to follow up on a chat that we had yesterday in the third hour of the program. When I look back on the week now concluding, frankly, I think we've had a great week of conversation here this week. And no, I don't say that every week. But when I think back on the issue or the conversation that I've had with you that was most of interest, at the top of my list is not the government shutdown. It's not the Wednesday night Republican debate. It's not the situation at the border. It's AI girlfriends. And I'm not talking Allen Iverson. I'm talking artificial intelligence, AI girlfriends ruining a generation of young men, or so said my guest yesterday. But before I backtrack to that, I want to put it in a larger context because this fits a theme of the program or an ongoing discussion item, and that is that the more connected we are to one another, this is going to sound odd, counterintuitive, the more connected we are to one another, the more polarized and lonely we've actually become. I've talked about this so often in the context of a political divide and polarization, often by referencing a number of authors and the books that they've written that I now see as having a common thread or theme, even if some of them were not written about politics necessarily. Here's an example. Robert Putnam, he wrote Coming Apart in 2012. His focus was on division of the white working class from the white upper class. And you might remember this. Yeah, there's the jacket of that book for those who are watching on YouTube. This was really an important book. And to make his point, he crafted a quiz. Think about the answers to some of these questions. Have you ever walked on a factory floor? Have you ever had a job that caused something to hurt at the end of the day? Do you know who Jimmy Johnson is? But are you thinking NASCAR or football? Murray had a whole series of these questions, and the more yeses you had, here's another one. Since leaving school, have you ever worn a uniform? Do you often eat at Denny's or IHOP? The more yeses you have, good for you. It means that you're connected to ordinary citizens. But if you don't have a lot of yeses, you're probably leading a gated community type existence, literal or figurative. And Murray argued that when the better off are living apart from those less well off on the socioeconomic ladder, that's a bad thing because the less fortunate suffer opportunity loss. Michael, what the hell does this have to do with AI girlfriends? I'll get there. Just wait a second. So there's the Murray book. And then I put that together with Bill Bishop's book, The Big Sort. There it is. There's the jacket. Bishop writes this book, and he talks about how 50 years ago we disengaged as a society post-Vietnam. And then when we came back together as a society, it was now the internet era. And we were able to sort of cast these narrow lines for our relationships. We weren't all together, at the Moose Lodge or in the Rotary Club or through military service. No, we were sitting back on laptops and we were finding the like-minded maybe politically, but also through hobbies and other interests. And all of this built on the analysis of the Harvard political scientist named Robert Putnam, who wrote Bowling Alone. And in bowling alone, he talked about the loss of social capital, our extensive social networks, which Putnam said bring together high volumes of trust. And he documented, frankly, the experience of people like my parents and maybe you or your parents or your grandparents in terms of being active in their communities. In my dad's case, it was a Rotary Club, and it was high school football and college football that he refereed. And Mom, volunteered for the VIA, the Village Improvement Association, which was a group of women who fundraised and built a hospital in our town. And yeah, they did belong to the local moose, as I say. Well, Putnam argues that a community's level of social capital is determined by this type of interaction. And when it doesn't exist, we're not helping one another, in the same way that Murray argued the same point in his book, Coming Apart. There's a whole body of social science data out there, and much of it very recent. Raj Chetty, who is the Harvard economist, who said that cross-class friendships are the best predictor of when the less fortunate are going to rise on the socioeconomic ladder. Even more telling than school quality, family structure, race. It's all class friendships that transcend all those other factors. It's a long-winded way of me saying that I'm worried about our kids, and on top of that comes Jean Twenge when she writes iGen, and she points out that 2012 marked the year when more than half of America, for the first time, now had a cell phone. And that's the precise point where the data suggests that a whole host of mental health issues were first noted among young Americans. The CDC has frightening data after surveying 17,000 American high school students. 42% of American high school students experience persistent feelings of sadness or hopelessness. How about this? Again, from the CDC. Among our high school girls, 30% said they'd had seriously considered attempting suicide, double the rate of boys and up 60% from a decade ago. My argument is, and I've made it before, that good things happen when we intermingle and when we have common experience, not when our kids are all in their bedrooms online and creating artificial existences. That's the thread. That's the theme of all of this data, which I'm trying to condense for you because I've got a time constraint. And then more recently, there was a story from the LA Times that I put in this category. It was about weak ties. And of all things, it talked about what happens when our supermarkets are now all automatic checkout. And the problem that this presents, particularly for older Americans. From the LA Times, this year, in a stark warning about epidemic levels of loneliness and isolation, the U.S. Surgeon General has dedicated a section of his advisory to the effects of technology on social connection. 2/3 of Americans said technology has made it harder to meaningfully connect. And nearly 70% said that it led to a decrease in empathy. Having connections such as that which come from supermarket checkout with a live body are what are regarded to as low stakes or weak tie relationships. You check out and you see a person, you've seen them before, they've seen you before. You might not even know their name unless it's on a name tag. But hey, how are you? How you doing? I mean, I know that many of us, we like the automatic checkout, right? You just go up, you don't have to have any human activity unless you make a mistake and somebody comes over. But for older folks among us, that's an important part of their day. It's another example of technology taking away human interaction. And then yesterday, Liberty Vittert, the professor from Washington University in St. Louis, was here to talk about this story that she wrote for The Hill. AI girlfriends are ruining an entire generation of men. In this context that I'm discussing of connectivity but less personal relationships, it turns out now that virtual or AI girlfriends are something that many young men are clinging to. With millions of users, apps have created virtual girlfriends that talk to you, love you, allow you to live out your erotic fantasies, and learn through data exactly what you like and what you don't like, creating the perfect relationship. We are playing. Do you see how this all fits together now? Do you see how this fits together, right? Put that up for the benefit of my YouTube audience. So we've been playing around with this for CNN tomorrow. Yeah, that's the Hill story. No, there you go. You see her? That's my AI girlfriend. Yeah, you like the look of that? Body, I think we've called her. Not body, although she has a nice body, I guess. Body. So after Professor Vittert was here yesterday, now I'm checking all of this out and trying to understand. And what I said to the professor yesterday was, well, okay, they can have all this interaction, right? They can have all this interaction. An AI girlfriend might sound enticing. You get to connect with a super hot girl who listens to you, appreciates you 24/7. Beyond choosing physical attributes down to the size of her rear end, you can pick her personality. You prefer hot and funny and bold? Well, okay, that's what she'll be. Do you want cute, shy, and modest? Okay, we got you covered. And then I said to the professor yesterday, well, okay, not to be prurient, but isn't there one thing that I'm not going to be able to do with my AI girlfriend? And she said to me, no, because the level of sophistication now is such that you can pair your AI girlfriend with, I don't know, I guess the equivalent of old school, a blow-up doll? And put all these pieces together, and you've got a relationship with something that's fictitious. And then today, in the New York Times, I just saw this after the dispatch of the newsletter. So it's not in the newsletter, but there's a story in the New York Times today, a Chat GPT with eyes and a voice. Chat GPT, viral artificial intelligence sensation, slayer of boring office work, sworn enemy of high school teachers and Hollywood screenwriters alike, is getting some new powers. On Monday, ChatGPT's maker, OpenAI, announced that it was giving the popular chatbot the ability to see, hear, and speak with 2 new features. It's like the last thing that young men need. One more thing I want you to be aware of in terms of how I see all of this together. The person who first put on my radar the plight of young men was Professor Scott Galloway. And this goes back to December of, I guess coming up in 2023, it'll be December 2 years ago. Scott Galloway, who's been a guest of mine on POTUS and a guest of mine on SiriusXM, smart guy, huge following among young men. He's the NYU business professor. Professor G is his handle. Best-selling author, serial entrepreneur, smart as a whip, good guy. So December of 2021, when Chris Cuomo got fired, and I was brought in to host at CNN the 9 p.m. time period for a couple of weeks. It was then that Scott was my guest because I had read something also in The Hill, which said that most young men are single, most young women are not. The story reported that as of 2022, Pew Research found that 30% of U.S. adults are neither married, living with a partner, nor engaged in a committed relationship. Nearly half of all young men are single. It's like the men are not having relationships, and the women are, because the women are looking for commitment that the young men are not able to provide, and therefore they are dating older guys. Win-win, I guess, for the women and the older guys, but not for the young men. So Scott Galloway was like on to these issues, and I brought him on CNN, and I want you to hear something. This is just a 30-second clip of yours truly talking to Scott Galloway about this issue. Roll it, Dan.
When you have a group of men, the lower half of attractiveness of men in online dating, which has doubled, now it's about half of relationships, and the top 20% of men in terms of attractiveness get about 60% of the interest, you end up with a group of men that are more prone to conspiracy theory, more prone to misogynistic content, more prone to not believe in climate change. So this is the American story if it's written with a pen whose ink is failing young men, does not end well. This is an existential crisis, failing young men.
Scott Galloway telling me there's an existential crisis for young men before we knew that now they can have an artificial intelligence girlfriend. It's a problem, and it's related to polarization, and it's related to loneliness, and it's affecting us all. The more connected we've become, the more lonely we've become, and the more detached we've become. Sorry to get so heavy at the end of the week, but that's my attempt in, 10 minutes to put together all these pieces. More headlines quickly from Smerconish.com, the Friday edition of the newsletter. I talked extensively about artificial intelligence and girlfriends and relationships among young men. I'll just stick with the dating theme for a moment or two. I haven't watched it yet. I don't know if I will watch it, but it's getting a lot of attention. The Golden Bachelor has arrived. There's a part of this that really interests me. On the season premiere of the latest spin-off of The Bachelor, a 72-year-old retired restaurateur named Jerry Turner was hopeful to get a second chance at love after losing his wife, Toni, 6 years ago. Apparently, they'd been together for 43 years. She was his high school sweetheart. So it's a reality show. It's a dating show. It's The Bachelor, only he's 72 years old. And I, again, didn't see it, but apparently it was very funny, according to what I read. We have a story about it at Smerconish.com. One of the older women, I think all the women are in their 60s and 70s. Does that make them older? The older I get, the younger that sounds. Like one showed up in her birthday suit, or so it was reported. What interests me about the Bachelor, is that what it's called? The Golden Bachelor, is that I work in this industry, the television industry, and there's so much pressure about the demo. I'm always saying, damn, I had a pretty good P2 number. That means the total audience. And I'm told, yeah, but how did you do in the 25 to 54 demo? And I always say, there are people who are, in their late 50s and 60s and 70s who are spending a lot of money. Why aren't we focused on that demo? Well, here's a show about a guy who's 72 and looking for love and dating women who are, I'll say, age appropriate. My question, will people tune in to watch this show? Will people in the demo? Do the 25 to 54-year-olds want to tune in and watch a 72-year-old looking for love? I don't know. I'm more interested in those ratings than the Wednesday night debate. That's what I want to see. All right. Thank you for being tuned in. Thank you for watching. I hope I see you YouTube tomorrow morning, 7:30, and then on CNN at 9 a.m. and a 3 p.m. replay unless there's breaking news. See ya.